This right here is the one long conversation with your pal, Skip. Hi, and welcome back to the one long conversation where we can conversate all day long. Today, talking with a very impressive gentleman named Stephen Barnes. This is a dude I've only talked with a couple of times in my life, but every single time has left me thinking for months to follow. I think he is one of the most interesting thinkers I know. He's New York Times bestselling novelist, a martial artist, a life coach, a lecturer, a philosopher, and most of all, he's a doer. He's the kind of person who doesn't just think things through. He thinks them through with enormous rigor and then puts them into practice and tests them to see if they actually work before he goes around giving you a bunch of advice that is not necessarily workable nor advantageous. The principle that he operates by, which I stand by 1,000,000,000%, is the three gates, in which you have to ask yourself when presenting or presented with any bit of information: is it true? Is it helpful? And is it kind? Stephen is all three of those things. Let's go talk with him right now. We're recording. Hello, sir.
Hello.
It's good to see you again.
It's good to see you too. You're up in the Bay Area now?
No, I'm up in Portland, Oregon.
Portland, Oregon. Okay. That's a nice city. I used to live up in that neck of the woods.
No kidding.
Yeah, I lived in Vancouver, Washington, and I lived in Longview, Washington for 10 years.
Wow. Okay, yeah, you're right over the bridge.
Yep.
And you're still in LA.
Well, I'm in the Southern California area.
Okay.
In Upland, east of Pomona.
Know exactly where it is.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, shoot. Do you remember the first time that we met?
It was in Las Vegas, wasn't it?
No, it was, I believe, at Dragon Con in Atlanta.
In Atlanta. Okay.
And it was in the VIP room, and it was a conversation between you and me and Tom Savini and Timothy Leary.
Oh, okay. If you were there, that was the time I shared a joint with the two of them.
No, you shared a joint with the three of us.
Okay, great.
Yeah. And I will never forget, because I knew Savini already. I'd never met Leary, but I was certainly a fan. I dropped a lot of acid as a young man. And I had never met you. But we're sitting there and we're passing the joint around, and you brought up the question of men who were both accomplished artists and good fathers. And I said, well, Frank Zappa. And Larry looks at me and goes, "Oh, I didn't like him." Those two guys.
Frank Zappa gave me permission to quote one of his songs in one of my books, so I enjoy him. Hold on a second. I'm going to. I see. Need to plug something in here just to keep my power going.
Fair enough. Yeah, do that.
Go ahead.
So, what did he let you quote, and in what?
Oh, the Kundalini equation, the song "Zombie Woof." They just started off a chapter with the line telling you all the zombie truth. Here I'm is the zombie woof. And I went to his house in off of Sunset Boulevard. He had a place off Sunset Boulevard and slipped an envelope under his door, laying out the scenario and asking him for permission. And he gave me permission.
That is amazing. Frank was one of my heroes.
Yeah, I can understand that.
Yeah, totally. Yes, so much of where I'm coming from, Frank spoke to directly to me as a child. I mean, when I saw, I was living in Argentina, and I had a friend who.
What were you doing in Argentina?
My dad was in the State Department.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I was like, this was 1966, 67, and I was living in Buenos Aires, and I had a friend whose brother was going to school in Berkeley, California, and he would send care packages of music to his little brother. So it would be Frank Zappa and Jimi Hendrix and Janis Joplin and Big Brother and just all this crazy shit. And I remember opening the cover of Freak Out, the very first double album released by anyone. And in the liner notes, the first song was called Hungry Freaks Daddy. And it says, this song is dedicated to Carl Orestes Franzoni. He is freaky down to his toenails. Someday he will move in next door to you and your lawn will die. And I was like, I like this guy. So anyway,
one of a kind.
Yeah, no, he really, really was. I find myself wondering what acerbic things he would have to say about our current cultural malaise, and I'm sure it would be pithy as shit.
Yeah, I wonder as well. I'm gonna guess that he'd sound a lot like what I'd imagine George Carlin would sound like.
See, I think about Zappa. I think about George Carlin. I think about Bill Hicks. There are a handful of people whose commentary I would really, really want to hear right about now.
I understand that.
But yeah, the fact of the matter is, it was pretty good weed, that joint, because you and I wound up talking for like hours, and I came away from it thinking that you had probably the smartest and most nuanced take on race of anybody I had ever spoken with. And
well, thank you.
Yeah,
it's something I've had to wrestle with. And there are no easy answers, no matter which way I look at things. So if I start with the assumption of equality,
yes,
which is the only safe assumption to make,
yes,
then it leads to a lot of interesting and sometimes difficult to express positions. My sense of where the country is right now is basically, I tried to warn you. It's like, black people are not surprised at all by any of this crap.
No shit.
Black women especially, it's like, we told you, you didn't believe it.
Yep.
Or we told you and you pretended not to believe.
Yep.
I think that there's a lot of that a lot of people who did not vote for Kamala wanted somebody to draw the line. They were that tribal extinction fear is a massive thing, but they wanted plausible deniability. So we'll just stay away and we'll let them. They had not considered the implications of what the kind of character of the people they were opening the door to implied, and by bringing somebody into the system who had never been in the system before, they were in essence injecting a virus into the brainstem of America. And so, I look at this and I think to myself, tried to tell you.
Yeah, no shit. And yeah, I think, there are the people who genuinely didn't know. There were the people who just didn't want to admit it to themselves or anybody else.
Yeah, I think that's a lot of it, because the data was there. I mean, either they're ignorant of the information that would lead them to certain conclusions. Of course, many of them were just oblivious, but I can't tell the difference. How am I supposed to tell the difference? Somebody's coming toward me on the street, or lives next to me, or they're sitting across from me at a desk when I'm pitching a project. How am I supposed to figure out what I'm talking to?
Through a gradual process of discernment, as the clues lay themselves out.
I think that it's, if I can't avoid dealing with them, if I am not, I'm likely to assume that there's a negative situation here unless I have a reason not to. In other words, like a personal introduction. They are members of something, some subgroup that gives me a hint about where they're coming from.
Right.
But if, for instance, I would not go and pitch a movie to a room full of white guys. I wouldn't bother. I mean, since I've gotten back from, and I hate thinking this way. I really do. I mean, I've had to really put a lot of concern into, okay, what's the nuanced version of this? But looking at the 10 years approximately since we came back from Atlanta, and we've done a lot of stuff in Hollywood.
Yeah.
And I realized not a dime that we've gotten from Hollywood has been from straight white men. Literally not a dime.
Right.
There's some that has come from straight white women, but it's mostly been black women and gay white men. So that sexual competition thing, which is part of the package, ain't there.
Right.
But it's difficult because I can feel that I'm being tempted to think in ways that I don't want to think. So it's very easy for me to imagine how people go wrong with that, because I try to be very conscious of it. I can feel it knocking at the door. Just go ahead. Everybody thinks it's like all kids think their dog is the smartest.
Right.
Their mommy's the prettiest, their daddy's the strongest. That's
Totally.
the base of tribalism. It's like my tribe.
Mm-hmm.
The danger is not in cheering for your team. The danger is in thinking the Dodgers are actually bums. That tribalism is just cheering for the home team.
Right.
Thinking the Dodgers are bums, that's racism. You're literally thinking the other tribe is less than you. And understand that you can be killed or disadvantaged by either one of those.
Right.
But one of them is easier is it easier? It's different. You got to use different tactics. So my entire life, I've been pogo sticking through a minefield while the people who set the mines are telling me there are no mines.
Right.
Anyway, big subject.
And it would be absurd to assume anything else. Dude, I totally get it. And I mean, even before Hollywood, there was science fiction. Now, how was that world for you coming in when you came in?
Well, I knew that, I'd seen the covers of thousands of science fiction books, and they were all white people and their imaginary friends.
Right.
Literally every single one of them.
Yep.
So I knew what I was dealing with, and I also knew that they wouldn't see it. They would claim, oh no, it's open. We're totally open. I actually had one editor say to me, well, the problem is that black people aren't interested in science fiction. And this editor was convinced that they understood better than I did what was going on. Considering this editor, considering that this editor was a woman, I have to say that, white splaining and mansplaining and, straight splaining and all that stuff has some similar emotional tendrils and emotional roots. Comes from kind of the same place.
Yeah, called splaining.
Yeah, so if you want to know what I did about that, why do you think I wrote so many books with Niven and Porno?
Exactly.
I mean, I was, I can be honest about it. I was worried about not being able to survive in the field. So I did what was necessary. Octavia Butler was working, examining potato chips at 3 o'clock in the morning to support herself
Right.
for years. And I was, I had a family. I needed to make money. So it's like, how do I do this? But I also knew that if I did that, if I wrote, and I love Larry and Jerry. I have so much gratitude for the security that they offered me in exchange for an opportunity to learn. I mean, really, were there some problems connected with that? Yeah, but I don't even talk about that publicly.
Yeah.
It's irrelevant. Those guys were family
Yeah.
to me, um, and I my only concern. I remember Harlan talked about, I think it was him, where the Hollywood was like, maybe he was quoting somebody else, it was like a mountain of fertilizer with a rose at the top.
Yeah.
And, if by the time you climb to the top, you've lost your sense of smell.
I
And
think he used the word shit, but
yeah.
that's totally a Harlanism.
So I wonder whether or not, that's all about you sacrifice, you cut pieces of yourself off. You don't say what you're thinking. So what do I need to do to get the job? And then the next job and the next job. You realize that everybody who can help you get there is a member of the same group that kept you out in the first place.
Right.
Now, in one sense, they may have different attitudes, but how do I know? How do I know? I mean, the safe thing is for me to assume that, yeah, they've got those attitudes, that those attitudes are pretty typical for human beings.
Right.
And I'm just running into it. And it's unfortunate that I'm outnumbered 8-1.
Right.
But I have to deal with this without hating, without fearing. The fear part of it, a big chunk of my interest in martial arts, which has been a part of my life, my entire life,
Yeah.
was about that. Had I been white, I might still have gone into martial arts, but I doubt I would have spent as much time in it.
Right.
To be honest with you.
No, totally.
Because it is that sense of always outnumbered, always outgunned. But at the same time, feeling loving connection and realizing, God, I love you guys more than you love us. That is an odd feeling.
Yeah.
But I refuse to let other people determine my character.
No, or your capacity for love, or the amount of which you carry.
Yeah, that's right. I refuse. I will not let that happen. I know that if I had the same racial attitudes that the average white person has, I would hate white people.
Right.
Because I can put my finger specifically on the damage that was done, whereas most of them are thinking kind of theoretically. I've heard somebody lost a job. I knew somebody who didn't get promoted. It's not personal in the same way. And you can look at the differential statistics on incarceration and infant mortality, lifespan, inherited wealth, and you can see that this is not theoretical, it's statistical.
Yes.
So I have to be very careful. I've always had to be careful. I don't actually have to be that careful anymore. It's just kind of who I am now. But I do have to be careful about what I say, because I know that people don't believe I'm really this way. They think that I'm a different way, but I talk that way because I like sounding new age and evolved, but I really must have these other attitudes over here. It's kind of interesting too.
Well, it's super interesting. And what it makes me want to get to is one of my favorite things that you talk about, that I talk about a lot as a result of you having brought it up, which is the 3 gates.
Yeah, 3 gates can be found in different ways in many different cultures, but primarily it seems to be a Sufi thing. It comes out of the work of I first became familiar with the work of Rumi. Before speaking, ask yourself, is it true? Is it useful? Is it kind? Now I turn those around a little bit. I say, is it true? Is it kind? Is it useful? But It's the same thing. You can go through any of those doors.
Yeah.
But the truth is that that, you know, if you ask, is it true? That really has to be, is it true as far as you can determine? Because we can't be absolutely certain of anything, but it's true as far as you can determine, and you care about whether it's true or false. And so you look into it. But that epistemology, the question of how do we know what we know, is an entire science and subject in itself. Is
Yeah.
it kind? That can be a difficult one too. I mean, having spent a lifetime in the martial arts, somebody can think that they've got a gotcha. It's like, well, if you hit somebody, if you hit somebody, is that being kind? Aren't you violating that? No, you're not.
It depends on how you're hitting them and why.
And why? That's right. That you
Yeah.
have that all morality rests on a foundation of you have the right to survive.
Yeah.
You know, if you deny someone the right to survive, you are excluding them from the body human, and you're saying you're an animal, you can do whatever you want to do. So
Right.
to keep people in the society of humans, you have to start with that basic right. You have the right to survive. So I remember an instance where a neighbor was trying to lure me into a fight and was doing this over a period of time. I mean, and I was trying to make friends with them. I was trying to, what in the hell is going on? And they
Right.
brought a gun over to my house one day and asked me to keep it for them while they soaked in my hot tub, which I'd invited them to do. And he said, well, he had this gun because he was worried about his boss, who was just so ugly and reminded him of me. And I thought, what the fuck? What's going on here? So I was kind of stuck because his daughter was my daughter's best friend.
Mm.
And it's like, I can't hurt this, this little girl's daddy.
Right.
And then I realized, that I was kind of stuck there. And I actually talked with my martial arts instructor, a guy that I learned some Native American spiritual stuff from. And he said something very interesting to me. He said, don't you understand, Steve, that he's counting on you to put his family's worth first? He's counting on you being compassionate because of the daughter, and that's why he's going to hurt you. And I said, holy shit.
Oh,
And I went home that night, and I was thinking, you're right. You're right. What am I going to do? And my breakthrough came because I was thinking, okay, I don't want to hurt the little girl. Let's call the little girl Jane. I don't want to hurt Jane's daddy.
no.
And then I thought to myself, he's trying to hurt Nikki's daddy.
Right.
And suddenly I shifted my identity. It was not a matter of me versus a loving daddy. It was one daddy versus another daddy.
Mm-hmm.
That gave me the right to look at it as survival.
Yeah.
That he was taking advantage of my love of his family.
Yes.
And that if I did not get my head straight, this was going to get worse and worse because that weakness in me was actually attracting his aggression.
Totally.
So, let's just say that the situation got handled peacefully, but it required that I be 100% willing and ready to end him.
Right.
That was a growth moment for me.
I bet it was. No, an awful lot of us never have to get to that moment, are able to sidestep it, live miraculously in some sort of like free zone where that shit never comes in at us sideways, much less.
God bless them. I feel happy. I'm jealous of anybody who never had to deal with that kind of thing.
Yeah, not everybody can say that, and there are an awful lot of people for whom matters of life and death are pretty much a daily thing.
That's true. You can't expect them to be open-hearted and compassionate. It's just not reasonable. The third thing is it useful? I look at that as, is it efficient and effective?
Right. So does it help?
Does it help the situation? So you need to be able to measure your results and to ask yourself, does this action or inaction further my intentions? My intentions are my intentions. Is it true? Is my map of reality accurate? Okay. Is it kind? Am I compassionate towards other human beings? And it implies that for something to pass truth, kindness, and efficiency, it has to be in alignment with your deepest values, and your values have to reflect reality.
Right.
So it's an entire education in ethics and philosophy and epistemology on the back of a postage stamp.
Which is the beauty of it, the simplicity and the accuracy is what I find stunning. And I mean, like, I pretty much, I have always felt this way, but to have it framed in that way makes it so much easier to explain to others.
And it's very interesting to me. There are people who will reject it or think, well, that's, too airy-fairy, and it's like that. And what they want is they want the opportunity, they want an excuse for lying and being cruel and not keeping track of their results. So they want to be excused from having to determine whether something is true. They want to be excused from being kind, and they want to be excused from, you asking them, well, did what you did work?
Right.
Does it work? Does it improve your life? Does it,
or anybody else's?
That's right, or anybody else's. So, I think that selfishness can save us in the sense that everybody is selfish. The only difference is, how do you define the self? How far does your definition of self go? If mine includes my family, includes my friends, to a certain degree, it starts including it spans out to the world. I can't. That's a hard one to maintain because I'm not perfectly centered, but I get it, and I don't have to have resolved all of the contradictions right now. I can resolve them as I go.
On a case by case.
Can't be everything to all people in all ways at once.
Now, I want to double back to that truth thing, because that one is huge for me.
Yeah,
and it's the reason that I brought it up in the context of the conversation as we were going with you going, how do I know where the 8 people in this room are coming from?
Right.
And one of the fundamental things is that you can't count on people to tell the truth.
No, that same teacher, Swiftier was his name, maybe said the most important thing to me. The one most important thing that he ever said might be, do not trust people. Rely upon them to do what they conceive as being in their best interest.
Right?
It's up to you to figure out what that is.
Yes.
I love that.
No, it's great because, I mean, the fact of the matter is, I trust people to be themselves. I trust people to be who they are, however they've defined themselves, whatever they understand.
How they define themselves is what they think they are.
Exactly.
If people were in my perspective, if people were actually what they are, this would be a beautiful world. That
100%.
The problem is people in denial of what they are.
Well, and okay, so let me reframe what I'm saying. I trust people to meet me from where they're at a particular moment in their development. That doesn't mean that I trust them to be awesome. Doesn't mean I trust them to be. I'm an evidence-based person.
That leads you to the question: how do you know what you know? How do you error check your way of evaluating the world?
On a second-by-second basis.
Okay.
Just basically, my experience has told me a lot of things. And out of all the things that my experience has told me, I have refined my perception to the most expansive and yet specific way that I can, so that I will look at every situation. I go in pretty open-heartedly, but pretty open-eyedly, and then just go, and then we'll see how it goes. I know what I think I want in any given situation. Often am surprised to find out things about myself I didn't know once I'm in the situation or on the ass end of it. But I my personal feeling is that we are designed to be able to operate on this planet. We are designed to be able to understand what we need to in order to pull shit off, and then it's just a question of whether we do it or not, whether we are honest enough with ourselves, whether we were honest enough with regards to how we look at the world, whether we have sufficient generosity of spirit to allow for certain things and enough self-defense to be able to deal with the things where that's required. And it's all a dance. And it's a dance that we're making up as we go along. But I think that we are designed with the capacity to understand what we need to, and the things that we can't get to, we can't get to. It's like, and also then it comes down to what are we? If you want to get down to the
I think the average person has the capacity to survive in this world sufficiently to pass on their genes and raise their kids to the point where where they can do the same thing. That all animals have that as sort of the baseline. And if you don't have that, you are clearly below average in that sense. Nature cheated you, and there are people who are above that average. But that average implies a lot. I mean, it implies a lot of intelligence and the capacity for wisdom, the capacity for understanding and courage. And, I think the average person is pretty cool.
I agree.
Yeah.
Completely.
So I don't, the people who can love dogs and cats, but not people, I think that they're addicted to the control. The fact is, you can take your dog and get him put down. If he displeases you, the dog eats what you tell him to eat, sleeps where you tell him to sleep. In other words, they love the control, and the animal is affectionate, nice, and sweet, and so forth. But you can kill that animal whenever you want to if it gets out of the way. You can't do that with another human being. Human being has as much agency as you, and that I think is terrifying to a lot of people.
Oh yeah, no, it absolutely is, and I think. I mean, again, I get back to the case by case basis. There's if you've grown up in certain kinds of hard places, and you referenced this early on, it's like if life and death is a constant in your face thing, it's hard to open up your heart and trust enough to accept that the actual goodwill of others. Because
you can't. Yeah, you create if you have somebody who's raised in total constant threat, you get the street urchins in Brazil, who just strip your corpse.
Yes.
You develop either somebody who sits in the corner and shudders, or constantly is looking for somebody strong to protect them and always makes the wrong choices, or a total sociopath. If that's the rule of the world, then this is what I will be in order to survive.
Right. And I mean, that's a perfect example of a place where that is exactly how it's going.
Yeah.
You ever been to Brazil?
No.
I've been to Sao Paulo and Rio, and found it really fascinating because, again, I lived in Argentina. I had to leave Argentina when the military overthrew the government in June of 1970, and when the tanks were in the streets and the mayhem was going on, and we had to bail. So we went to Montevideo, and my dad then moved to Sao Paulo. I came back to the States, but growing up with when traffic cops have submachine guns and seeing death in the street definitely altered my perception.
It would.
Yeah, dramatically.
Yeah. I'm glad I didn't have to go through that. It would have changed me.
I'm glad I did go through it because it changed me. because there were certain things that I was not going to be able to unsee, and I would carry that through the rest of my life, and it would help me understand how things are and how things work, even when the cops aren't carrying the machine gun on their shoulder on the daily, you know. And I came back to the States in 1970, just in time for the anti-war protests, and I landed in Arlington, Virginia. So I'm immediately okay. I've landed in Arlington, Virginia. I'm right across the Key Bridge from DC, and you go over the bridge, and there were like the military police and stuff, and I'm like, so what's the difference? And you know, I'm 13 years old, and it posed some legit questions for me.
I can imagine.
Yeah, and then that's why I liked Frank Zappa. So shit. No, this is really good. I'm really glad that we discussed this stuff, because it's all stuff that I've been really wanting to talk with you, because I really love where you're coming from on it, and I wanted people to hear it.
Yeah, I like to say that people who kind of like the way I'm talking about these things might want to check out my website at www.lifewrite.com. We do not discuss politics there. It's for writers and artists and people trying to, you know, be grateful and improve their lives. And so it's deliberately designed to be a positive corner of the internet where people never have to worry about getting hit in the face with negativity.
Beautiful. I tend to treat my social media like a living room where people are welcome as long as they
Are polite.
are polite.
Yeah, I've never kicked anybody off any of my threads on Facebook because of their politics. Not once. I have kicked people off because they refused to be polite about it.
Yeah.
You know, there was one guy who I actually knew in the real world. I mean, he'd been to my house. I wouldn't call us friends. We were friendly. And he was on the other side of the political issue, and he would kind of dive bomb onto my page and post long screeds, you know, that were clearly, you know, part of a propaganda campaign. I'm not even going to say he was posting stuff that was incorrect. It's just that I asked him, I said, when you interact over here, please tell us what you think and feel. Don't just post something that you got someplace else. And he wouldn't listen to me, so I eventually had to ban him. That was unfortunate. Hope I run into him one day and we have a chance to sit down and talk.
Yeah. And maybe it'll work and maybe it won't.
Like I said, he was never really a friend.
Right.
He was somebody who, you know, he knew we moved in the same circles. I taught martial arts to one of his girlfriends at one period of time, and he came very close to asking me, let's see whether or not this works. He didn't quite get there, but I could tell that was in his mind. You know, he wanted to know whether or not I was for real.
Yeah,
which is perfectly reasonable.
No, again, you know, they want to know, can you pass through the three gates, whether they acknowledge the three gates or not?
Yeah, you know, am I true about, I don't even talk about my rank in the martial arts publicly, you know, because it feels a little absurd even to me. But, you know, when you do something over a long enough period of time, if you keep inching forward, eventually you get into some strange territory and you get beyond most people's horizons. At which point, you know, unless they understand the value of incremental progress, they either kind of think you sprang full bore from the brow of Zeus, or that you're lying.
Right. So, okay, you got any place you want to take things? I'm thinking of,
I'd love to hear your thought. You saw the short film that we made, Keeper.
Yes.
I'd love to get your perspective on it, because my biggest goal this year is to make a feature version of that.
Now, what I would like you to do is set that up for people who are listening to this and don't know what you're about or what the film is about.
Okay. So my wife and I are both writers. I'm science fiction primarily, and she's horror primarily. And
you're going to name her?
Tananarive Due.
There you go.
You know, so, you know, winner of the LA Times Book Award and stuff like that. And
It's amazing.
she had an experience with her grandmother uh, of listening to her respirator going all night, and it terrified her. She was just a little girl at the time. It terrified her and also made her aware of her own mortality.
Yeah.
And out of that came a story that dealt with that situation. And we took that story and turned it into a screenplay called The Keeper, which is basically about an elderly woman who makes a deal with a demon to protect her granddaughter. That's the way I describe it. It's not exactly what it is, but that's close enough.
Close enough.
And Jordan Peele and Monkey Paw Productions, who we'd worked with on some other thing, wanted to do it. And Universal, the company that he had his deal with, said no. So this was, talk about a roller coaster. You know, we went from the, oh my God, it's so wonderful, to, so we didn't give up. We, John Jennings at Macroscope, the graphic novel company, was interested. So we restructured the screenplay and turned it into a graphic novel. The screenplay kept circulating, however, and it ended up at Blackmail Productions, Malcolm Lee's company, and they did The Best Man and stuff like that, and Girls Trip. And they were interested in making it, but also they asked whether or not we'd be interested in directing it.
Right.
So I'd never thought about that, but I was like, oh, that's interesting. And they also had the idea that there was a contest. A Japanese company called Samanso was having a screenplay contest, and the winners would be given a particular chunk of money to make a short film. So it is there a short film in this screenplay? So we narrowed it down. We found one sequence that we thought, with a little work, could stand on its own thematically, and we wrote it into a screenplay, about 20 pages, sent it in, and I don't know how many people were in the contest, but I would imagine it was pretty big because the monies were not insubstantial. And we won. And so we, in like June or something like this, July of this year, we spent 4 days filming it, and then Samansa had notes, and we arranged to get one additional day of shooting.
Nice.
And we did the additional day. Now that additional day happened only a week after I was out of the hospital, because as you know, I nearly died. I had an embolism that was thrown off by hip replacement surgery, and it stopped my heart. So I was in the hospital for over a month, and I got out, and a week after I got out, I was at a Hollywood party hobbling around. And 2 days after that, I was on set back at the original site doing pickup shots for the movie. And so we've been editing it, and it's picture locked right now. And then we're finishing with the color and so forth and so on. And I sent you a link to an earlier version of it. It was still pretty complete. I'm willing to take responsibility for what you saw. So
it was pretty complete. Yeah. Okay. I don't know. Is what you showed me, does it include the pickup day?
I think so. I'm not sure. I think it did. Is there a sequence in there where she's praying, "Now I lay me down to sleep"?
Yes.
Okay. Well, then it's close enough.
Okay. Right on. No, it's fascinating because, again, I don't know if you know this, but a couple of years ago, I officially retired from writing books to devote the rest of my life to making films. And
yes, I know that.
Yeah, it was just basically like I refuse to die without making at least 3 feature films that I'm actually proud of.
Great.
And that's I'm cool with 12, but I can't let this go until I've actually accomplished that thing. That is a thing I'm determined to do.
Great. And how are you doing on that?
Well, I've made one.
And are you happy with it?
I've made one that I'm proud of, that I'm super proud of. Yeah, and it was made for almost no money at all. It was made with the members of my acting class, which I joined to be a better director of actors, and then fell in love with them, and kind of fell in love with the process. And you know how actors are always looking for monologues or scenes to do.
Right.
It's like, fuck it, I'm going to write some for you guys. I'm going to.
No, we advise that. We advise writers to take an acting class or go to an acting class or recruit people and make a little film, make it on their iPhone or whatever,
Yeah.
edit it with online software. But I think it is so valuable for the writing process.
I'm definitely a better writer of screenplays. I'm a better writer for actors as a result of understanding better what actors need from me as a
Great.
writer and as a director.
Right.
So no, I'm actually super happy with it. I wrote it, directed with one of the producers. I will never not be a producer again. And I cut it, I edited it, I did all the music. I even have a cameo in it.
Wow.
And it was just basically I'm making this movie by hand, and I understand it.
Right. That's
So
great.
no, it was really, really great. And now I have a couple of films in the pipe for this year that are budgeted.
Excellent.
Yes.
Excellent. I
So
wish you all the luck in the world.
thank you. And back at you. The reason I bring all this up is because it's a journey. Learning to make films is a journey. And I have to say, your first film is so much better than most people's first films that it's crazy. And part of it, I think, is the discipline that you brought to understanding, to the discipline you brought to the journey of learning and skill acquiring that you were going to have to do. Part of it had to do with the fact that you had some money and that you were able.
Oh yeah, we absolutely. It was, things were tight, but we did have money, and I give credit for a couple of different things. One, that I co-directed it with Tananarive, and she has a different set of skills than I have. And so our skills were complementary in that sense. And the second thing was that we have excellent friends. So we could go to friends like people like Brian Fuller, and ask questions, about, well, how do you do this? And his suggestion was, your capacity to do this will be based on the quality of the people you can attract.
That's exactly right.
That you have to get the right people. So the first, I forget who it was. Maybe it was James Cameron in his master class on directing low budget movies, which is just phenomenal.
I bet.
He talks about the first person you should hire as your cinematographer. And so Kenzan Takahashi was recommended to us by a producer that we were working with on another project. And when we first saw him, he had a 3D architecture rendering software that he was screen sharing with us about the way he saw the script. And I looked at that and I said, this is the guy. This is the guy. I can tell he's the guy because he was translating my thoughts about the script into shootable format. We could do this shot this way. We could do, in the software was just beautiful. You could actually design the shots before you ever got to the house. And we had to make changes once we got there. But this was, I could feel that he understood what I was saying, warts and all, and could translate it into something that a camera crew could follow. Once we had him, then I think the next person was our editor, who approached me actually on Facebook, saying, listen, I heard that you were doing this and I've done this. And he was very accomplished. And but I didn't know him. And so he said, we have this mutual friend. And I talked to the mutual friend, and the mutual friend said, oh yeah, he's great. So I am so I'm so grateful to the people we were able to attract, and I felt like I was able to fill in the gaps between what I saw and what needed to be done to get it to the screen, and also how some of the things that I saw in my head weren't going to work. They weren't really that good.
That's a good thing to know.
Oh my God, is it ever? But yeah, our feeling now is that, when I'm going to say when, because I have to get my mind into the right frame. When we get when we direct the feature version of this,
Yes.
we know how we can do it at several different budget points.
Yes.
We know the budget that we want. We know the budget that is the irreducible. We can't do it for less than this.
Yes.
And now we're playing for position, and I'm in a better, life is strange, man.
You're kidding.
Really, I did not expect to be in the position that I'm in with this, but when I look at my life, in other ways, it was inevitable that I would wake up and realize that the problems that I saw were real, that the people who had made their way through the system in spite of those problems had different opportunities, different skills, different levels of capacity in some ways, or different connections. That I don't have those things. But what I do have is the ability to look at what each of those people did and say, how does this compare to what I see in a book like Think and Grow Rich, talking about how to achieve your financial dreams,
Right.
or my own magic formula.
Yes.
And so if I take a look at a dozen different people who overcame similar problems, analogous or homologous problems,
Right.
and then say, this is how they did this. They had dreams. They determined that what it would cost for them to do this. They resolved that they would pay the price.
Right.
If they were willing to pay the price. They began moving. They gathered allies. They kept learning. Whatever it is that I see, to boil that down into steps and then say, okay, I can't follow their path directly.
No.
But those 10, 15, 5, whatever steps where I'm looking at how they accomplished what they accomplished, what can I do with what I've got? Who am I? Are they just smarter? Are they all just smarter than me? No.
No.
Are they all just more confident than me? No. But each one of them found a way to solve the problems and answer the questions. Do I believe that I can do this? I absolutely believe that I must try. I absolutely believe that I have to give this a shot, and I will do the best I can. And that's all I can do. But what I have seen, and I will tell you something else. I had a false self-ego that protected me from the fact that everyone around me told me I could not accomplish what I was trying to accomplish. For over 20 years, I was the only one of my racial demographic who was active in the field of science fiction. Kit Delaney was no longer in the field. Octavia Butler was fine, but she was a slightly different demographic in terms of being woman.
Exactly.
So she and I were I was the only guy and she was the only woman. Octavia was above me in terms of her ability. I don't begrudge her that at all. But I had that cockiness, that sense of I can do this, and it helped me enormously to walk into rooms that I did not necessarily fit in, because I would walk into a room and say, I'm here, but it was ego. It wasn't me. It was something that could protect me. I've lost a lot of that. And the 10 years I spent in the Northwest, combined with the 3 years I spent, it's like I spent 10 years in the Northwest, got back to Hollywood, spent 6 years trying to rebuild my career. And just when I was getting things going again, we had to move to Atlanta for 3 years. So in essence, I lost 20 years. I lost the central 20 years out of my career. And I could no longer see a way to get to my goals based upon the tactics, strategies, and abilities that I had gathered at great cost over the course of my life. So it left me with like, well, what do I do? Well, there are ways. Is this interesting?
Yes.
Okay. Going back to the question of Niven and Pornell, I knew I needed help. And I looked for somebody to help me, somebody who was on the other side of the issue, because that's what I do. Anytime I could not find anyone who had accomplished what I wanted to do, who was a black man. So I simply went to find someone who had accomplished it. And then what I did was I took a look at things that black people had done to accomplish in other arenas, and I
Right.
asked, how do these things overlap? And so, okay, so Larry is constantly researching. He's constantly writing. He has a positive sense of himself and a positive expectation. Came partially from being rich, being born rich, but that's okay.
Yeah.
It's like his wealth did not directly impact his ability to write. It created an opportunity for him.
Exactly.
It created a safe space, but he wasn't able to buy his way into New York. So, looking at those things, I was able to kind of put this together. So the question that I asked myself is, do I have an accurate view of who I am? And I
Right.
think that I think it's pretty accurate, that question of how do you know what is true? I
Right.
believe that if you reach your goals physically, emotionally, and career-wise all at the same time, you can't have a terribly inaccurate map. Your map has to resemble reality.
It's based on something.
It's based on something, and if you're wrong, well, so what? I'm having a great dream. But what I said was that having lost 20 years in some important ways of momentum, I'd never planned for this. 30 years ago, even more, I'd started wondering whether or not I was going in the wrong direction, whether or not my working with other people, Larry Niven and Jerry Pournelle, had numbed my sense of who I am.
Okay.
And I talked to Leo and Diane Dillon, who are friends of Harlan, wonderful artists.
Absolutely.
They are art. Where one of them ends a line, the other begins. It was just their artistic entity that they created said to me, they live in this other world, that world of art. And I got in touch with them through Harlan, and I thought that I wanted to talk to them about, I'd met them briefly. I thought that I wanted to talk to them about my wife at the time, Tony, her interest in art. But when we met for lunch in Greenwich Village, and I was sitting across from them, I realized that I didn't want to talk to them about Tony at all. That I was in the presence of the thing I was afraid I could never be because I'd sold myself.
Uh-huh.
And I broke down, man, and I just started crying, and I just, I said, is it too late for me? Did I stumble down the wrong path? And is it impossible for me to find my way back? And they looked at each other, and then with vast compassion, she reached across the table and took my hand and said, Steve, if you can even ask that question, it's not too late.
Exactly.
And so I looked at the tools I had, and I'd walked away from Hollywood the first time to be my daughter's father, because I was not going to let my daughter grow up without a father.
Right.
And I have never regretted that decision, but I know it cost me. But what I got out of it was I have a wonderful relationship with my daughter. I adore her, and she knows her daddy would do anything for her. And that the simplicity of that, there's nothing Hollywood could have given me that would have been worth that. Moving away from Hollywood the second time, after I spent 6 years trying to break things up, was a matter of having married into a family where Tananari's family, when something goes wrong, they gather around each other. That's just the way they are. And so her mother contracted cancer, and Tananarive had to go back to be with her mom. This was totally unanticipated. It was the last thing in the world I wanted to do. I was totally out of my depth. I didn't know what to do. The only thing I know is that when it comes right down to it, underneath everything else, I'm a dad. And I had a son, and I was not going to let my son grow up without, I was not going to put him in the middle of a war zone. If this is what needed to happen, we would do it, and I'd figure it out somehow.
Yeah.
And what I got out of that is I lost some of that false self-image. What I got was a sense of who it is that I am and something else. maybe I doubt whether or not I have the ability to make it in Hollywood, and I do doubt it. But I don't doubt the capacity of the two of us, Tananarive and me, together to
Mhm.
do it. I look at the people making it and know I can say anything I want to, but they do not have more capacity than the two of us together. And
Right?
I have earned, that we are connected. We what has happened over the course of our marriage is this is a real partnership. And if I can humble myself and say she has skills I don't have, and she looks at me and says he has skills I don't have,
Yeah.
then the two of us together, we can do this. And that I'm certain of. I am no longer certain I could do it by myself, although the truth, I probably would, because I'm a clever boy. But I know that I can do it together with my
Mhm.
wife. And
Mhm.
that certainty, and also the fact that she wants this. She wants to be a director. And I hadn't wanted it, but I want it now because I see it as the only way of being sure that I get my last remaining life goal, which is a feature motion picture.
Mhm.
Uh, so life has deposited me someplace I never expected, but it is the conclusion that maybe I went in the wrong direction trying to survive. And when I think that part of the reason that Tony, my first wife, moved away from California was she was tired of seeing me get hurt by Hollywood. I
Sure.
think she was trying to save me.
Yeah.
It was because I had my heart broken by people at Baywatch. That's another story. Um, and I went up there, and it, it was all. I'll be up here until my daughter graduates high school, and then I'll go back to Hollywood. I got back to Hollywood. I spent 6 years trying to put it together, and then that got wrecked. In one sense, by Tananari's need to be back where she was. But the fact is, nobody forced me to marry that girl.
No.
That I knew what I was getting into. And I
Yeah.
think that some part of me understood better than I did that I could not put my old life back together again without falling into the same trap.
Yeah.
That Tananari, that what happened forced me to reconsider everything and to come up with a new way to look at my goals and a new path to the potential of accomplishing them. So it's that stoic thing of the obstacle in your way becomes the way.
Right.
And that's the same thing that happened with when I was in a coma in the hospital. That going through that experience created a huge barrier that I was forced to look at. Well, if somebody gives you a huge weight and you're forced to lift it to get out the door, by the time you can lift it and get out the door, you're stronger.
Yep.
So, you know, life gives you the obstacles that you need to finish yourself. Is something a petition? It's a philosophical perspective. I can't prove it, but the question is, if I can't prove that it's true, is it useful? And it's hella useful. Is
Yes.
it kind to the little boy inside me who dreamed of having a strong daddy? That little boy is so pleased with me,
Mhm.
John. I'm telling you, the little kid inside me just thinks that I'm the cat's pajamas. I mean, just delighted with me. So
Mhm.
is it true? I don't know. But
I'm
if
going
I
to go.
as if it is true, it works, and that may be the closest I can get to determining whether or not something is true. Does it work?
Well, I got to double back about a minute and a half. When you were like, your life knew better than you did where you needed to go at this particular moment. That's the thing that I'm trying to get at when I say that we are equipped to understand what we need to understand in order to get places. There
Yeah,
are, there
I
are,
think I think that what stops us is fear.
oh, no question about it. Well, and also, um, okay, I know I discussed this on another podcast, but I was talking with a neuroscientist and just talking basically about uh, experiments that were done where you put somebody in the MRI machine uh, a jazz musician, you put them in there with a foldable keyboard that will drape across their knees, and then you have them improvise, and you see what their brain is doing, what activities are being triggered. You would think that more things were going on. That's not the case. Fewer things were going on. The things that weren't going on were the barriers went down. Right? So it wasn't like you became more creative. It's that you became less inhibitive of your own creativity.
Yeah, I think that that's absolutely correct. That creativity is a couple of simple things. One is it's clear communication between the child part of you and the elder part of you. And the other is between the dreaming world and the waking world.
I was going to say between the unconscious and the conscious.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's the soul of the game. And from there on, it's just a matter of do you give yourself permission to play, and do you throw down? And then, there are skills, I think, that are part of being able to communicate things. And are you willing to learn the skills?
Yeah, I think that sounds like it. I mean, every master that I've had a chance to get close to, and I'm fascinated by the concept of mastery.
Mm-hmm.
When you get close to them, what you see is a lifetime of focus under mentoring. They gave themselves to some discipline, some expert, some course of action, and then became obsessive about it, and measured their results, and they got a little bit better. They notice where other people are, but being better than other people isn't their primary motivation. It's being better than they were.
Yeah.
People who've never accomplished much of anything do not believe this. They believe that the people who have achieved more than them had an advantage, or they were simply born with it. They don't see. I think that if they really saw, they're afraid that if they really saw, they would be contemptuous of themselves. Why didn't you discipline yourself? Why didn't you keep studying that language? Why didn't you keep going to the karate class? Why didn't you ask her for a date? That by taking the position, some people just have it and some don't. They don't have to look at themselves, and I will tell you the honest truth that when I was in the hospital, I had an honest to God, no bullshit near-death experience.
Right.
At which time I got, I think, as much clarity as it's possible for a human being to have. You lose that clarity because moving through the world demands that you have an ego. But for a while there, and I can get back in touch with that, all the rest of that was gone, man. All there was the question of, what have you been in life? And I was asked, do you want it to be over? No more strife, no more struggle. And I said, no.
Right.
And I was asked the most important question I've ever been asked, which was, why? And it had nothing to do with me directly. It had to do with people I had commitments to, people I love, things that I wanted to do. But none of it had to do with fear or feeling that I was being cheated or anything like that. That was bullshit.
Yeah.
It was, life is just what it is.
Yeah.
It begins, it is, and then it isn't. And you're going to be not here for a lot longer than you were ever here. And I don't care about that. I do care about my son. I care about my wife. I care about my students. I care about giving back to the world the gifts that I was given. And that clarity, man, I have to think that it was worth the pain.
Yeah. I want to say, man, you didn't lose anything you needed through any of the things that you went through.
No, I didn't get everything. It's just like you don't always get what you want, but you get what you need.
Yeah. Yeah. And you got a lot.
Yeah, I did.
There's a thing. I sort of feel like boss years, and I've had quite a few of them. In that weird space where it seems like everything is going off, I feel like things are crystallizing under the surface. I feel like there's a lot of growth that's going on. whether you're aware of it or not.
That's George Leonard, in his book Mastery, said that the reason most people never become truly expert, master anything, is because they can't handle the fallow periods where it feels like nothing is changing. When the
Mhm.
truth is that you're undergoing deep levels of integration,
Yep.
so that higher levels of capacity are available at the level of unconscious competence.
Exactly. Exactly. And yeah, that's why I don't sweat that shit. I mean, it's like I don't like to waste my time, and I don't like other people to waste my time either. But there are moments where I'm like, okay, that thing that seemed like it just pissed away 6 months of my life, I grew I grew some muscle in there. I grew some understanding, uh, and I also know there's a mistake I don't need to make again.
There you go.
You know?
There you go. It's not making mistakes, it's repeating them.
Yes. Yeah.
You
We're
know?
making a fucking lifestyle out of them.
Yeah, there you go. And I think that people who have a frozen view of their own being, they say, this is who I am, not this is what I am right now. This is the best I can do with the resources I currently have access to, which includes my emotional concept of self. People get stuck on the one. Who I am, it's a rock, as opposed to who I am is a process. I don't really know anything, but on the other hand, every day I'm betting my life that I'm accurate in my perceptions. If you can hold both those things at the same time, you can't know anything, but you have to act. And
Yeah.
acting in the wrong, acting is the only thing that saves your life, ends it, invests it, wastes it, whatever. So there are people who can't deal with the fact that there's nothing they can know for sure. I can. I can deal with it.
Yeah.
It's
No,
like, okay, I don't there's nothing I know for sure, and I'm prepared to bet my life on it.
yeah. And if you show me the thing that I'm missing, hopefully I'll see it.
Well, hopefully. You
You know?
know, I I'm working on a project right now. Before my hospital stay, I thought that the project was one thing. After the stay, and I began to integrate the lessons that I learned, I realized that there was something else entirely I wanted to do with that idea.
Mhm.
And watching it morph and evolve, that book has now become something that nobody else in the world could write. And I wouldn't have had the nerve to write it before.
You know what I love? Things when I bear witness to a piece of work that nobody else could have done but
Yeah.
the person or people who did it. That's my jam.
Yeah.
You know,
I
that
don't know.
idiosyncratic work.
I don't know whether or not I can do this at the level it needs to be done in order to reach its real potential. But I know I'm completely committed to trying, and it feels, my creativity feels like it's just bubbling up. Anytime I want to, I can get into that project and lose myself. And that's the feeling that you want. So
Yeah.
I've got multiple projects right now where I can lose myself. And that they are also have the potential of providing safety to my family, and the ability to do things from your heart that are going to be rewarded by the external world sufficiently that you don't have to flip burgers for a living.
Mhm.
What kind of a gift is that? I mean, it's
Huge.
like, wow,
Huge.
it's worth risking anything, you know
And
and
I gotta say, man, for me, life has been like this. You know, you do things. Some of them work, some of them don't,
right.
and some of them work creatively. And like I've written books that have sold 1 million copies, and I've written books that have sold 100. Okay, uh, there's a fairly massive expanse between the two.
Million copies, that's fantastic, that's wonderful.
Yeah, I've done it twice.
Wow.
Um, um, but um, one thing I loved every single one of them. I never wrote a book that I didn't care about, and And I know that every single one of them had something for whoever read them, whether they were one of the million or one of the 100. And so I can stand behind all that. That being said, nobody makes a living off 100 copies.
Right.
So that is the dance. Sometimes it's great. Sometimes people love it. Sometimes you get one or the other, and sometimes you get both, and sometimes you get neither. What are you gonna do?
So what else do you want to talk about? Well, we're running out of time here, but we have time to, if there's another major subject that you wanted to ask me, another question you wanted to ask me, I have time to answer it.
I got to be honest. Almost everything that I came in here to want to talk about, we just talked about, and I don't have another thing. So I'm kind of thinking, like, if either of us think about it, let's come back and do another one.
That's fair enough. I would say that, okay, so www.liferight.com is my social media site.
Yes.
And I came up with a rehab when I was in the hospital. Man, I was smashed flat. I was too weak to lift my sheet. I had to learn how to talk and walk and drink and eat again. And I looked at the rehab program and said, you know something, my lifetime of studying martial arts and yoga suggests that there may be a better way. And so I started, with the cooperation of the rehab people at Casa Colina Rehab Center, I created my own rehab program that worked so well that I was released from rehab 8 weeks early. And my orthopedist said, can you write this down? I'd like to give it to my patients. And people can take a look at that program if you have rehab to do at www.warrior-walk.com. Warrior-walk.com. Because I think that, must when the devil drives, that my being smashed flat forced me to rethink everything I thought I knew about the body and how to work with it. And I came up with something that is available to people at any stage of physicality. I mean, literally flat on your back in the bed, can't get out of bed, can barely walk, can't get up from a chair. Those people, all the way to people who are advanced athletes. I'm a little shocked at what I came up with and the way the doctors have responded to it.
They're a little shocked too.
Yeah. I may have actually come up with something. So they can check that out if they kind of like the way that I think.
Love it, man. I love the way that you think. And I will post links when I post this so that people can just click, right?
Yeah. But listen, it's been great, John. And I wish you the best possible 2026. We want you to get that movie, in the theaters, so we can see it. I would love to see your name up there and applaud. Say, I know that guy.
Yeah, man. Back at you. Let's go do our things.
All right. Take care of yourself, buddy.
Great to see you.
Good to see you too. Bye-bye.
Bye. So that was great, right? Love this guy. So happy to speak with him. So happy to have you here with us while we did it. And let's do it again soon. Take care.